How you doing, everybody? Jeff Hoverson here from District 3 in Minot. I'm filling in for Gary Emeneth, who is the golden microphone of North Dakota, of course. And today we are blessed, seriously blessed, to have with us Rob Muntz as a chair in District 46. He's also the regional chair of the Southeast. So just a quick little lesson here. There's not just districts, but there are 4 regions as well in our state in terms of the state Republican Party. And Rob is the chair of the Southeast Regional Chair. Rob Muntz, good to have you.
Well,
thanks
thank
for being here. Did I do that okay? Fill in the gaps. I'm really curious on how's it going in the state party and all of that.
Thank you very much for having me, first off. Appreciate the opportunity. And yes, I am the chair of District 46, which is in Southeast Fargo. Okay. Our representatives for District 46 are Senator Powers, Representative Casper, and Representative Morton. And I was lucky enough to be voted to the full term as Southeast Regional Chair for the NDGOP.
Did you say, is Desiree Morton in your district?
Yes.
Oh man, you're lucky. That's great. We have a lot of good people there.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. We really got lucky when Desiree and Michelle stepped up to run with Representative Casper.
Yes. Wow. Great.
And yeah, they're doing a wonderful job. Representative Morton just jumped in and just ran with it.
Yeah, she did. It's been a blessing. By the way, how is Jim Casper doing?
Jim's still in recovering. Oh. He's still going through therapy, but he did participate remotely in a special session. His driving force right now is to get back out to Bismarck in 2027 to finish his term there. Okay. He's just sending prayers and support best we can.
Jim Casper had a stroke about a year ago, but he's recovering, so praise God for that. Please keep praying for Jim. So how's it going in the party?
For those who don't know, we actually had a change in leadership this last June. Matthew Simon was elected chair, and so there's a little bit change in philosophy and leadership of the party. And along with that comes some challenges, but Mr. Simon has been facing those challenges. He still has the full confidence of those that elected him. And we're striving towards our convention on March 28th and 29th in Minot. And it's going to be a great convention. We got some great speakers already lined up. Senate candidate from Minnesota, Royce White, will be speaking Friday evening, the 27th. And Steve Deace, who is a well-known podcaster and was actually on stage at AmFest, the TPUSA event last December. Gave a great motivational speech. I was blessed to be there.
I bet. Steve Deace is great.
Yes, he was great. So I'm looking forward to his time with us at the convention. He'll be leading the prayer breakfast Sunday morning as well, too.
Are these things that anybody in the public can come and attend? I know people get confused about a state convention, which, by the way, is in Minot this year.
Yes.
But like I said, when Steve Deace is giving his keynote address, is it open to the public, or is it just for delegates, or how does that work?
As far as I understand at this point, it's just for delegates.
Okay.
I have not heard that his speech would be open for the public. Okay. That could be a possibility. Unfortunately, I'm not on the committee of arrangements who's making all the plans. Okay. But come be a delegate. It's $135 for the 2 days. Be a member of the NDGOP, and you just need to talk to your district chair in your legislative district. And if there's slots available, they should be able to get you in. Some great speakers. We're going to be talking some great business. We're going to be endorsing candidates. And if you're wanting to get involved in politics, if you're the kind of person who watches TV and shakes your fist and you're unhappy with what's going on, this is where to get involved. You can't complain about the results of the work that you didn't do. And that's where we're at. If you want change, it starts locally.
I'm going to quote you on that one, Rob. That's good.
It's not my quote. It's not. But
no, that's good.
Is what we have to do is we have to be involved if we want change.
And there is plenty of kerfluffle. First of all, I'm so happy on the progression of what's been happening in the party, from Perry Schaefer to, not Michelle, Sandy, to Matt Simons. I'm really pleased. I really like Matt, and I'm looking forward to seeing more from him. But there's kerfluffle for him and you guys to deal with. Primaries, and let's get into it a little bit. The whole skipping of convention, putting more emphasis on the primaries. We have an open primary right now. Maybe we start there. Could you just define, when people hear the term open primary, what does that mean?
An open primary, in essence, is specific to primary elections and partisan ballots, not your local elections, okay? Those occur in June as well, too, during the quote-unquote primary election, but those are nonpartisan. What I'm speaking to specifically is the portion of your ballot that you'll receive in June, where you either pick the Democrat side, typically on the left, or you pick the Republican ballot on the right, and you can only vote either left or right. You can't vote on both. That spoils your ballot. So when you get your ballot, you have to choose, am I going to vote the Democrat or the Republican side? And the issue is, it doesn't matter who you are. You get to choose in the ballot booth which party's candidates you're going to vote for. So it doesn't matter if you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, your voting history, your membership of a party, you get to choose. So I, as a Republican, I'm a member of the NDGOP, my district party, I can choose to vote for Democrat candidates if I choose in the primary. So I get to help select who their candidate is for the general election. And vice versa, Democrats can vote for the Republican
And do you
candidate.
think they might do that?
I think it's happened more than once, yes.
A lot. So
And
interesting.
Well, and it gets more complicated than that as well.
Yeah.
And because of the way the laws are set up in North Dakota, there's two main ways for candidates to access the partisan primary ballot. The first one is...
Meaning like Republican versus Democrat ballot.
Yeah, so that one you'll get in June where it's just, you have to choose the party that you're going to vote for. Again, not local elections. So you can be endorsed by your district party or the state party, or you can gather signatures. And as what happens when you gather signatures, you send those to the Secretary of State, and then you fill out a form called an affidavit of candidacy. And on that form, you have to select which party you're going to run for. So Democrat, Republican, or Independent. And what happens is a candidate can go collect signatures, and they can choose, say, Republican, to run on a Republican Party ballot. The Republican Party, be it legislative district or state, has no way to challenge that. They have no way of saying, hey, they don't really...
they just have to get signatures. So they get how many signatures? 100, 150?
300 usually, around that area, just so you have enough to cover some signatures that may not be accurate. But the party has no way to challenge that candidate running on their ballot.
Now, repeat that, because that is a huge point right there. So the Republican Party has no way to challenge. So anybody can come and say, oh, I want to be a candidate. All they have to do is get signatures, and there's no vetting. There's no way of knowing if they're even a Republican at all.
The party has no way to challenge them being on their ballot, and the Secretary of State has no statutory requirement to even approach the party and ask a simple question like, is this person a member in good standing of your party?
Yeah.
The Secretary of State simply, if those signatures are correct, and all the paperwork is correct, place that candidate on the ballot of their choosing.
And that's becoming a more difficult problem because our political culture is changing. I would think that back in the day it worked because people were frankly more honest about what they believed, and if you said you're a Republican, you really are a Republican. And if you are a Republican, you would pick the Republican ballot and you wouldn't cross over to the other side. Even though we always could, I think those problems are being accessed more by strategies that are a little bit more, shall we say, uncouth. Is that the word for the day? But where does the problem really, so why is this a problem? Does it have to do with, so basically, are you nominated at the primary? Whoever you are, you got your 300 signatures. If you win, then automatically your name goes to the...
So whoever wins the primary election, their name is moved onto the ballot in November
Okay.
in the general
With an
election.
R by their name.
With an R by
And
their name.
Unchecked. Okay.
Unchecked, unchallenged by the party.
Okay.
Again, the Secretary of State has no statutory requirement to
Okay.
assess their ability to even align with that
Okay.
party.
Obviously, June 9th is the big day for our primary here in North Dakota. So please put June 9th on your calendar. But we left off talking about some of the problems that are not small when you're dealing with how the primary is being used, and I would say even abused, according to its original intent. And that's why Rob is so good at explaining this. Rob, do you kind of want to just pick it up from there?
Yeah, the problems start at the legislative district level is a good way to start explaining this. District 25, I'm going to use them as an example. They're in the southeast region and southeast corner of the state around Wahpeton, Colfax, that area, Richland County. They just had their endorsing convention last Saturday, so they endorsed 3 conservatives that, if you look at Legend 8, their votes, Senator Lewick is certainly in the red. Kathy Skro, who has been a representative in the past and is returning to the House, certainly falls into that category. And then Matt Evans was the 3rd candidate. And so they were endorsed, so they're going to automatically be on the primary ballot in June. Now, if somebody wishes to gather signatures, they could also be on that ballot in June, and they could choose the Republican Party so that they would challenge Senator Lewick, Representative Skro, and Matt Evans, but there's no way to check who they are.
So they could be a full-on Democrat.
They could be a member of the Democrat Party.
And
they
could
could
come
even
over.
they could have even served as a Democrat.
Yeah, and that's not just fantasy, that's reality.
That is reality.
Yeah.
So in the eastern part of the state is much different than the west in that we have much more Democrat representation on the east, okay?
Yeah.
And Wahpeton area is a very good example of that. So the Democrat Party, or those that align with the Democrat Party, could put forward a candidate that could access the Republican ballot, but would be much less conservative than the 3 candidates that were endorsed. So what that would do is, if that person won the primary, they would be on the general ballot in November. And now you have a Democrat and a very light blue Republican on the ballot.
Yeah.
So it benefits them, because even worst case scenario, if the Republican wins, their votes are probably going to be much more towards the Democrat side than the endorsed conservative Republicans.
And that could also be just a Republican who is just very liberal, who identifies more probably. And so the Democrat voter, if they have an option between the more conservative platform red Republican and what we're calling the light blue, okay, pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
And it's been happening.
Because the Democrat voters can cross over in that primary and vote for that less conservative candidate. So that regardless of what happens in November, they have 2 much less conservative candidates to choose from.
Okay, so compare that now, the results of the primary vote, compare that to the endorsing that their own party would have done as well. So you have people that have been endorsed. What's the difference between endorsing somebody at a local district convention and a primary election? How does that compare?
So when your local district or the state party holds their convention, they endorse candidates. That just simply provides them a pathway to the ballot. When you signature gather, and this is an interesting little caveat, and Century Code specifically states that parties endorse, but when you gather signatures, that's considered a nomination to the ballot.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting, words matter.
And let's talk about those words. Let's talk about how is nominating different than endorsing?
Let's look at it backwards, if
Okay.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
What if the party could nominate versus endorse?
At the district level.
At the district level.
Yes.
And let's carry that through. What if that nomination actually didn't mean to the primary, but directly to the
So if you got
general ballot?
Okay, so let's say these endorsing conventions that the districts have been having. Ours is coming up on March 14th. So instead of endorsing that candidate, if they nominated, they would not have to go to the primary, really. that a nominating means you go right to the general election in November.
If their bylaws reflected that correctly, they could.
That has a lot more integrity built in that way, because now the Republican Party can actually send Republicans to, it's more.
So before I go any further, I want to make 100% clear. The signature gathering process is essential to keep people who want to be on the ballot, their access maintained.
Yeah.
I don't want to restrict anybody from being able to access the ballot and run.
Yeah, gotcha.
This conversation is about who runs with the R next to their name,
Gotcha.
or the D, actually.
Yeah.
But that's where the crux is. The Republican Party, whether it's legislative district level or state level, we don't really have control over who gets to use our brand.
Yeah, which is the R.
Which is the R.
Yeah.
And that's really the issue, the crux of this argument, is the party doesn't have the control that it deserves. And when we get into the challenges that are shown to us really by Leginate, and when we start looking at voting records and we compare those to the party platform, we see these discrepancies. And a lot of that occurs because, especially more recently now, these representatives and senators are bypassing the endorsing process and signature gathering so that they can go to the primary. And because of their name recognition, they are getting elected. But the problem is solved, in my opinion, by allowing the change from endorsing candidates to nominating candidates, so that we still go to the general election with one Democrat candidate, one Republican candidate, and anybody else who wants to run, they can run as independent. That's totally open.
And they would still run in the primary.
They wouldn't necessarily have to.
Okay, so you could get signatures to go onto the
general ballot.
Okay, so could you do that and still have the R then? Or would you have to run as an independent, or what?
Ideally, if you wanted to strengthen the parties and have the candidates that align with the party platforms and allow the members of the party to truly choose their candidates, they would simply run as an independent.
Yeah.
But what does independent mean? They could still follow the party platform of either parties. They just wouldn't have the party designation on the ballot.
Which probably no candidate's going to be in favor of that, because if you give up the R, your chances of winning go way down.
In North Dakota, it's very important, especially once you get east of Valley City.
So could it be where you could still get signatures, just like it's being done right now in the primary, and get and I'm just hypothetical here, I'm not promoting or demoting, but is it possible that you could still win the primary and bring an R with your name to the general, as well as the party endorsing, the district endorsing who they want to send to the general? So you'd actually have two R's at the, or does that invite more complications?
I think it invites more complications. The idea here is to just simply send just one candidate to the general election ballot with an R.
Yeah.
And that candidate is chosen by the party.
Yeah, I like that. You know what? To me, that's got way more integrity in it, because these kerfuffles and gaps that we're talking about, they're huge. And this problem, it's just not a minor tweaking problem here. So that's why this year, so many people that tend to be on the more light blue end of the scale, closer to the Democrat as they vote, they're just skipping the endorsement. So how are the people going to respond to that? Isn't that kind of, you're going to hide from those who care most about the party and are voting as Republicans, and you're just trying to find a loophole around that, what does that say about the candidate? That they know they can't win if they actually run as a Republican and get voted on by Republicans. I can't win there, so I'll just get some signatures. And again, by popular appeal, you got the name, slick advertising. Of course, that's why this year I think we're going to see hundreds of thousands of dollars sunk in. If you add it up statewide, we'll be north of $1 million, I bet, $1 million.
For the districts, yes.
For district level fights at the primary.
Yeah.
Is this going to affect the state convention too?
If we were if we were nominating candidates instead of endorsing, it would have a difference with our state convention because I think it would get more people involved in the convention. I think it would strengthen the convention or the party's position because this would be the opportunity for those who truly want to be involved in the Republican Party or care about the Republican candidates they have on the ballot. That would be their opportunity to get involved and be there and be part of that decision making.
Is the governor going to be at the convention?
I do not believe so. I believe he has a prior
So what
commitment.
does that say? That says a lot. Wow. Folks, this is an issue. Dig into it, talk about it, be calling each other, and let's restore some integrity back into what it means to be whatever party you're a part of. So we're about out of time. We've been talking about the primary. We've been talking about the endorsement versus nominating in terms of whether a party can endorse their own candidate and have them go and carry an R right to the general election. Just all sorts of stuff. And really, we're trying to get after the heart of what's really problematic because there are fixes to this. There are solutions. And one of the places we need to look for solutions is, first of all, what is Century Code? What does the Constitution already say about this? So I've got Rob Muntz here. Thanks for hanging there with me, Rob.
Absolutely.
Is there a constitutional question that, as it relates to the current primary system?
Okay, so I've gone through and I talked about how anybody can access a certain ballot, a partisan primary ballot for one party or the other. And we talked a little bit about how people can cross over and vote, but is what that is all getting towards and pushing towards is what's called the freedom of association. And we find this under the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. And the freedom of association is the tenet of the First Amendment to allow Catholics to just worship with Catholics. It allows them to associate with those who carry the same tenets and beliefs that they do. Okay, so a Muslim or a Buddhist or even a Amish cannot force their way into a Catholic church, is what it boils down to. So there's that portion of it. And then if you think like the NAACP, they have freedom of association because their purpose is to promote a specific set of ideals.
It protects me and you. We can associate and only be about being a Catholic or being a Muslim, and that can't be interfered with. Yeah.
And then there's also a political side to this discussion on freedom of association. And that is, as a Republican or as a Democrat, liberal, conservative, you have the right from a political perspective to associate with those who are like-minded. And essentially that's what your party is. It's a group of people who come together, have bylaws, have a platform, see these are the things we believe in, these are the areas we want to write policy, to enforce, to promote our perspectives. And if we take that and we look at that ability under the First Amendment to maintain our anonymity, I don't want to say anonymity, our autonomy, thank you.
Yep.
And then we combine that with the open primary system in North Dakota. And again, we're the only state in North Dakota, in the U.S. that does not have party registration or voter registration.
Okay. Really? I didn't know we were the only one.
We are the only one. So that's part of this discussion too. But when those who align with our opposition can vote on our candidates and help choose our candidates that go to the general election and even access our ballot through signature gathering and get elected and go to a general election ballot with the R designation, then I feel we have an issue, a First Amendment freedom of association issue with our current primary system in the state of North Dakota.
Can I give an example to see, to help people relate to this? I like that you brought up religion because it would be like your church, and I'm a Lutheran, but let's just say Baptist. Okay, your Baptist church, a gathering assembly of people who believe in the Baptist theology, and you want to get a pastor, what you're talking about with this freedom association, it needs to be protected, because if it's not protected, then a Muslim could come in to your church and say, hey, I want to be elected as your pastor. And he could bring his friends with, and at your, however you determine who's going to be the pastor, that's what could happen. And
Yes.
politically, that's what actually is happening. I know the church example was extreme, but sometimes you have to do that to understand the point. But politically, it's not that extreme. We're talking about something that has been happening and is getting worse all the time. So it's really a stealing of that freedom of association is what's going on.
That's how a number of us do see this issue.
Yeah.
We believe that it needs to be discussed. It needs to be looked into, because you've mentioned that there's some challenges with the party right now. And a lot of people are pointing to a change in leadership. And I would argue that we were coming to this point regardless. Because when you look at how the election system works, and this path was chosen some time ago. And to understand it a little bit better, maybe, is I'll talk a little bit more about the comparison between open primary,
Yes.
semi-closed, and closed
Yes.
primaries. As I mentioned, North Dakota is the only state without voter registration. When you have voter registration, you can have a semi-closed or a closed primary. In other words, the voter's required to associate with the party they choose to vote for in the primary election. And they walk in and they have to have that association to vote that party's primary. If they're independent in a semi-closed primary, they can choose which party they want to associate with. But if it's a closed primary, it's just those that are a prior association with a party.
Through like voter registration.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
There's another little caveat. There's also a process called party registration. But that's the best way to explain that is you would become a member of the party, and then the party would divulge its membership list to the Secretary of State,
Yeah.
and then only those people on that list could vote that party's
And
primary.
the result is basically the same.
The result
Yeah.
is essentially the same, and North Dakota has this history of not succumbing to the voter registration process. And it involves essentially you telling the government that this is my political preference. So some people would argue that's none of their business. Again, we kind of go back to that First Amendment issue, right? It would be a significant step, I think, in the state of North Dakota to either start a party registration or a voter registration system. There would be a lot of disenfranchisement of voters. It would be costly to implement at this point. And I believe that nobody's complaining about not having to register to vote. There may be some confusion if they come here from another state where they had to register. But I think we can maintain our current system of not requiring voter registration, but still fix the problem we have with crossover voting and access to the ballots by simply allowing nomination direct to the general ballot by the parties.
Interesting. I think you're probably right. This is a lot to absorb.
Yes, it is.
But the more you understand it, and when you threw the First Amendment in there and explained freedom of association, the right to associate, and the need to protect, that makes a lot of sense as to where we are at right now. At this point, I'm with you. I think the best solution right now is allowing districts to nominate.
Yes.
Now, would that be is that a party rules thing? Is that something the district can do? Is that a century code issue? Do you know? Is there anything?
I think it's a combination of the above.
All of it would have to occur.
Yeah, we would need to have a discussion. I believe it would have to go through some changes in the legislature and be signed by the governor, as well as district parties would have to make that choice as well. And it could get really convoluted if some districts still want to go through the endorsing process and some want to do the nominating.
Oh, interesting.
So we would have to, I think, to eliminate confusion, we would have to make the decision as to whether or not this completely eliminates the primary and we just do nominations with district parties and state parties, or we stay the way we are.
And if I'm understanding you, you believe there's a way to do this without getting rid of the primary. We could still have the primary or not,
If
the nominating.
if a district wanted to maintain its endorsing convention and just endorse to the primary,
Yeah.
I believe it would create confusion if other districts
Gotcha.
wanted to
Okay.
directly nominate.
Okay, let's back up a little bit. Let's just pretend that we've gone down this road and all the districts want to do it. They want to do a primary, they want to do nominating, excuse me, but then you could still have the primary for independent. For people who wanted to get signatures. How would an independent then?
I don't think it would be necessary because it could be if you wanted to limit the number of independent candidates on the November ballot.
So what you're saying is there's already a way for an independent to get on the November ballot?
You would simply gather signatures. You would just
Yeah.
take the process
Because that's
already
already,
in
so that kind of is a nominating. I guess that's not really a primary. So what you're saying is you just get signatures and you're on. Okay.
Yes. So it would eliminate simply the partisan portion of the primary
Okay.
ballot.
We've talked about endorsing and nominating, and we've talked about the problems with the party. And last segment, Rob brought in how that connects with freedom of association and the First Amendment, which I thought was a really good move. I personally am learning by listening to what Rob has to say. So we kind of left off with okay, what if we went to a nominating process from the districts? And let's just say that all the districts were in agreement that we want to be able to nominate as a district based on freedom of association who we want, who's with us, to be on the ballot in November, okay? I asked Rob at the end, and notice I'm putting all the tough questions on him because he can handle it. But Rob's looked into this a lot. He studied it, and I appreciate his viewpoint. So, Rob, who would oppose that idea of nominating, and why would they? Let's get into it. Who would oppose it?
I think some of those folks we've already talked about, they're as you would say, the light blues.
Okay, why?
They have a pathway right now to the general election ballot while still maintaining an R next to their name, which in North Dakota is very meaningful. And they don't have to go through the party process and the party evaluation, and they don't have to answer to those in the party as to whether or not they actually support the platform.
So they want less or maybe no accountability because they can win by bypassing the Republican system that was already set up, the party system, the districts. They can bypass their district, and then through popularity, money, advertising. It's interesting how we're shifting from the traditional way, which was let's have a discussion, let's have a debate, let's have gatherings and talk about what the candidates believe, okay, and appeal to, if I want the R, appeal to the Rs and get their endorsement first, okay? We're moving from that to, hey, if I got money and I got people giving me a lot of money, and I don't have to do all that. We can just throw a bunch of brochures in people's mailboxes, and I can just sit back. And I'm oversimplifying that, but basically it's lack of accountability to the platform,
to the platform
yeah.
and to the party, and
Yeah.
and ultimately it weakens the party.
It does. It very much weakens it, almost to the point of turning it into nothing. Are there actually people in that category of people who want to actually get rid of the endorsing convention altogether, or get rid of even the state convention?
I think that's probably a possibility.
We had a bill or two last session.
House Bill 1446.
1446. Do you remember that one?
I remember some of it.
That
yes.
went a long way. That was an attempt to really diminish the districts, the local
and the state.
association of, and the state, yeah.
Yes, because what that would have done is it would have forced the state convention to after the primary. So the decision would have already been made as to who the candidate's going to be for the November general election. So there's almost no point then for the convention other than some resolutions or maybe some internal party business, because a big portion of the convention is about the endorsing of candidates, especially the state convention for our statewide candidates. So that move would have damaged the party extensively. And is what we're saying is almost the opposite of that. We need the convention to replace the primary. And you had mentioned the discussion and the back and forth and debates. And lately there's been a push back against some of the tension surrounding politics and the lack of civility. Okay? I would proffer this. I would proffer that by removing some of this process involving the parties in the convention, we've contributed to the lack of civility, because the convention is the training ground for idealists to bring their ideas, put it forward to the group that essentially aligns, and let us talk about it. And sometimes those discussions are blunt and rough and plain spoken, but it gives us an opportunity to develop our ability to discuss matters civilly and to problem solve and find the best way forward for the group, for the party. And then we can take our candidates forward, make our resolutions, and push those things that align with
you know what? That's a great angle, Rob, because you're actually bringing civility back into. There's no reinventing of the wheel here. In a debate discussion format, there's rules. There are already established rules and how to conduct yourself.
Exactly.
And so you're actually increasing civility, and you're allowing different points of view to be presented to the people, while at the same time protecting their right as an association to send who they pick to the. So now this year, when we have people bypassing that problem, how do you think that's going to strike the voters? Do you have any kind of a sense of, are they going to see the lack of integrity in that? Or is it just plain going to be weird to them? Is it going to do you think it'll affect the votes at all? Or is time will tell kind of deal?
I think it's going to depend on how much the voter understands the situation. If it's somebody who just, it's election day tomorrow, I got to go vote for the R or the D or whatever it is, I don't think they're going to notice it. But if folks, and I mentioned it earlier, if you're one of the people that, oh no, the lesser of two evils again, you can't complain about the outcome of the work you didn't do. So getting involved in your party still matters. Educating yourself as to who you're voting for, what you're voting for. Don't just believe what the TV tells you, what the mailer says.
And this is becoming more important, I think, too, because our culture is changing. Our culture, they talk about the divide between just the Republicans and the Democrat is getting wider, and that's true, but it's because our culture is politically moved further left. Look at a conservative platform, it's pretty much remained the same. Pro-life, property rights, lower spending, taxes, personal responsibility, individual freedom, all the things that we've believed really haven't changed that much. But you look at what's happening on the left side, everything from transgender issues to watch out for your property because you may not have the same rights that you thought you did, spending out of control, both at the state level and things are so out of whack that now it's actually even more important for our generation to understand what Rob is saying. And this is solvable issues, but it takes people knowing what's going on, understanding the issues. And I think if we did get things changed back to correcting the problems of back to freedom of association, the First Amendment, I like your idea of nominating. If we just did that, I think we'd get to a place where there'd be greater civility, more integrity in the system. And I think we'd see a lot more clean ballots, clean voting as well.
And if I could offer another aspect of it as well, too, is the civility issue is, I'm not saying it's intentional, but because of its the lack of debate occurring at the convention stage, we now have it coming more into the public. And instead of exchanging ideas at the convention level and working through them, it's actually gone the opposite way. And politics has been radicalized in a lot of ways. And I look to the left as part of the problem with that because they attack. Okay, it's not a free exchange of ideas.
And ad hominem,
Yeah, and so the civility issue, the just being able to discuss and debate, that has been pushed aside for terroristic politics. I hate to use that word, but look at what happens look at what's happening in Minnesota when they see something they don't like. Okay, law enforcement enforcing federal law. Their idea is to go out and protest, attack, demean, throw things, instead of trying to change the law.
Instead of, having a civil debate and were there rules to follow. And I've always been, what do you think of this, Rob, related? I've always been confused as to why. Okay, we use the term red, now we're using, because of Leginate, which is an awesome tool by, you guys got, if you haven't checked out leginate.com, you need to, if you want to find out where your legislators stand. But we've got the red Republicans and the light blue, and there's a big gulf between them. Actually, the light blue vote closer to the Democrats than they do the red. There it is right there. But I've always been confused as to why, if you're a light blue and you want the title conservative, okay, that you want the title Republican, why are you upset if somebody is more conservative than you are? And I just sense that, that's such an odd thing because you're a conservative and you're fighting against a conservative. Right now we have this governor, even the previous governor, doing this where they're inserting themselves in these local races and they're somehow upset with, oh, you're too Republican or you're a little too much conservative. It's like very odd to me, but
I don't understand why I, as a Republican and a conservative, have to feel like I am some sort of outcast or an outlier and get eyeballed. And
I think it's money and power. It comes right down to it. But we've been flagged that we're almost out of time. Last comments, Rob. What do you want people to know about District 46?
We went from the 21st most conservative voting district in the state to the 3rd. And I'm very proud of that.
Catching up to us in District 3
yes.
Right? That's great. Good to have you, Rob. God bless you. God bless North Dakota. And pay attention to this guy because he's got a lot of good stuff to say. Have a good day, everybody.